I didn't open the door right away. The knock was too careful. Not a delivery driver. Not a neighbor. It was the knock of someone who wasn't sure he had the right to be there. I almost ignored it, but I knew that knock. I had heard it 17 years ago, the day he left. But something inside me tightened in a way it hadn't in years. I walked to the door slowly. My hand hovered over the handle. For a second, I actually hoped it was a mistake. It wasn't. When I looked through the peephole, my heart didn't race. It dropped. 17 years. And somehow, I knew immediately. He looked smaller. That was the first thing I noticed. Smaller than the man who used to stand in the kitchen with his shoulders squared, trying to keep peace between me and my mother. His hair was mostly gray now, his jaw thinner, his posture slightly curved inward. But it was him, my father. And standing beside him was a teenage boy. The boy wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't bored. He was staring directly at the door, at me. He had my eyes. That's when I felt it. Not anger, not hatred. Something much worse. Displacement. 17 years earlier, I had believed I understood what strength meant. Strength meant ambition, achievement, control. My father had none of those, at least in my eyes. He worked at the same warehouse for 28 years. Same schedule, same steel-toe boots, same exhausted silence at the dinner table. I mistook quiet endurance for weakness, and that mistake would cost us both. The night he left wasn't explosive. There was no shattered glass, no police sirens, just raised voices in the kitchen. Money again. My mother's quiet frustration had hardened into something sharper over the years. "You're capable of more," she would say. He would respond softly, "I'm doing my best." That phrase infuriated me. Doing your best wasn't enough, not to me. I walked into the kitchen that night feeling righteous. I said what I had rehearsed in my mind for years. "You've never been a real man. You just exist." The room went silent. My mother didn't defend him. He didn't defend himself. He looked at me for a long time. Not angry, not humiliated, just wounded. The next morning, his side of the closet was empty. No note, no explanation, just absence. We told ourselves he ran away. That version was clean, simple, convenient. He abandoned us. That meant we were victims. And victims don't have to examine their own words. My mother changed after that. She became efficient, controlled, emotionally economical. She worked longer hours, paid the bills, refused help. She never cried in front of me. But sometimes, late at night, I would hear the kitchen cabinet open and close. She would stand there in the dark, still, not moving. I never went in. I never asked. Life moved. I graduated, found a job, moved to the city. I told people my father left when I was 22. I said it with a tone that implied betrayal. People sympathized. Sympathy felt powerful. It reinforced the story I needed. I married at 30, divorced at 36. My ex-wife once said something I pretended not to hear. "You walk away emotionally before you physically leave." I laughed it off. But she wasn't wrong. Whenever conflict rose, something inside me shut down. I would go cold, withdraw, disengage, the same thing I accused him of doing. 3 years ago, my mother died. Before she passed, she held my hand and said something that irritated me. "If he ever comes back, Don't carry it forever. I told her he wouldn't come back. She looked at me in a way I couldn't interpret, not regret, not defense. Something complicated. I didn't understand then. I do now. Back to the door. When I opened it, time didn't slow down like in movies. It compressed. 17 years folded into a single breath. "Hi," he said. Just that, hi. Like he had stepped out for groceries. The boy beside him shifted slightly. "This is Daniel." Daniel nodded once. He looked at me carefully, not hostile, curious, hopeful. That made it worse. We sat in my living room like men waiting for a diagnosis. No one reached for comfort. No one apologized. Finally, he said it. "I'm sick. Pancreatic cancer, late stage, months, not years." I braced for emotional manipulation. Instead, he said something unexpected. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you." He swallowed. "I left because I was afraid of what I might become." That sentence irritated me. It sounded like therapy language, an excuse. Until he explained, the night I called him weak, something shifted inside him. He had been drinking earlier, not heavily, but enough. And when I said those words, he felt something he had never felt toward me before. Rage. The kind his own father used to unleash, uncontrolled, violent. He saw himself in that moment raising his hand. He didn't. But the possibility horrified him. "I grew up with a man who hit first and explained later," he said quietly. I swore I would never become him. So he left. Not because he didn't care, because he cared too much to risk becoming what he feared. I didn't know how to respond. My narrative was cracking. Then Daniel spoke. He came back 3 times. I looked at him sharply. "What?" Daniel nodded. "He drove here, parked down the street, sat in the car." My chest tightened. "He didn't knock." "No." "Why?" "Because he thought you were better off." Better off? The arrogance of that decision enraged me. He chose absence without asking. But the next revelation hit harder. "He called your mom once," my father admitted. My throat tightened. She answered. I felt something collapse inside me. "She told me you were building your career, that you were stable. She said coming back would only reopen wounds." My mother knew he was alive for years. She chose silence. She chose to preserve the narrative. And suddenly, I wasn't sure who had protected me and who had protected themselves. Weeks passed. He didn't beg. He didn't push. He came once a week. Daniel came too. Daniel was quieter than I had been at his age, more observant. One evening he asked me something simple. "Do you think people can leave and still love you?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know. Then came the second major twist. I was cleaning out my mother's old storage unit when I found a box I had never opened. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to me, from him. Every birthday, every graduation, every Christmas. He had written, he had sent them. She never gave them to me. I sat on the concrete floor of that storage unit and read words from a man I had believed didn't care. "I'm proud of you. I hope you're safe. I hope one day you understand." He had tried to speak, and she had chosen silence, not out of cruelty, but out of pain and pride, and maybe fear that if I forgave him, she would have to forgive him too. I confronted him with the letters. He didn't know she kept them. He thought I ignored them. 17 years of misunderstanding built on assumptions. And then came the strongest twist of all. The one that rewrote everything. During one of his final weeks, when the medication blurred his edges, he confessed something he had never told anyone. The night he left, he didn't just fear hitting me. He had already hit something. He had punched the wall in the garage after I walked away. And when he looked at his hand bleeding, he realized how close he was to becoming the man he hated. But that wasn't the real shock. The real shock was this. He hadn't left entirely on his own. My mother had asked him to go, not permanently. Just for a while, she had said. She was afraid too, afraid that the tension between us would explode into something irreversible. She thought distance would calm everything down. He thought leaving entirely would protect us. They both made decisions in silence. Neither told me. They built a sacrifice around me without including me. And I carried the resentment for nearly 2 decades. In hospice, as he grew weaker, I sat beside him one night after Daniel left. The machines hummed quietly. He looked smaller than I remembered him ever being. "I thought leaving would break the cycle," he whispered. "It just created another one." And that sentence shattered me, because he was right. I had spent 17 years emotionally distancing myself from people the moment things felt unstable. I had nearly become him, just in a different way. When he died, it wasn't dramatic. No final speech. Just a long exhale that didn't return. Daniel and I stood on opposite sides of the bed. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt something else. Responsibility. Not for his choices, for mine. After the funeral, Daniel asked if he could stay in touch. I said yes, not out of obligation, but because I understood something finally. Love doesn't always look like presence. Sometimes it looks like fear. Sometimes it looks like flawed protection. Sometimes it looks like silence. And sometimes it looks like a man knocking on a door he expects will never open. 17 years ago, I told my father he wasn't a real man. I was wrong. A weak man doesn't come back. A weak man doesn't face the son who rejected him. A weak man doesn't admit he was afraid. It took me 17 years to understand that strength isn't about staying perfectly. It's about returning when you're ready to be honest. And now, every Sunday, Daniel comes over for dinner. We talk about normal things, work, school, small frustrations. And whenever I feel the urge to withdraw, to go cold, to walk away emotionally, I remember the knock, and I stay.